So this is part 49. So I'm just going to continue what was said in part 48, although all of this could have been in one video for part 47. So the adversary of our soul doesn't like Iran, doesn't like the USA, doesn't like Oman, doesn't like the UAE, doesn't like Qatar or Bahrain. Okay? So they can figure out, these evil angels via devices can figure out how to start a war that doesn't need to be started. They will do so. And one of the things these evil angels know, they know Iran will retaliate, right? And then they know that Iran can't touch the mainland USA to immediately strike it. So they know Iran is going to retaliate against anything connected to America in the Middle East. That will make a big mess because there's so many things in the Middle East connected to the USA. So they retaliated, right? And when you're angry, you will retaliate, right? And especially if you have a culture where you're quick to wrath, quick to murder, quick to do this, you will retaliate. And especially when you take vengeance into your own hands and to a great degree, it's really not good. And I believe they realized that what they did after the fact, that it wasn't good, because a lot of those missiles didn't even reach their target. It affected the people, even Iranians in other parts of the Middle East, in the Middle East, in those countries. So they apologized. They apologized, but they continued on because it's like your spirit is indeed willing. They rather not do this, but their flesh is weak. So that's what they know. That's how they think that's the best way to resolve things. So that's how they're going to respond. James 1:19-20 helps us to know to be slow to anger, slow to speak, slow to anger. And we ought to be slow to wrath, right? For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. When you start to take matters into your own hands, you may hurt someone that's innocent, and that may bring God's judgment against you. And so, because when you're angry, you may get to a certain level in your feelings, and you're not thinking in a rational way, and you'll act a fool, right? So, and knowledge puffeth up, right? Because if you walk in pride and anger, you may retaliate, lash out, and affect the innocent lives around you when you didn't intend to do that. But love edifieth, right? And God is love. So seeking God before you're quick to respond is a wise thing to do. Seek God in meekness and humility, not leaning on your own understanding, but bringing it to God in prayer. He'll tell you how to respond so that you can be accurate and precise, because God is accurate and precise in all his ways. So seek peace and pursue it. That's what the life that God wants us to have, one with another. And sometimes we have to forbear, right, with some things that another person does against us in order to get to peace. But some people are not willing to forbear. You did this to me, tit for tat, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I'll retaliate against you. And that's not always the best solution. And Iran is able to see that, right? So seek peace and pursue it. And God gave us language. He gave us words, right? And basically, he wants us to use our words to get to a point of peace. What is the purpose of language? We talk to dispense knowledge, to give information, to speak the truth, or to resolve conflicts, right? The purpose of language, to speak life, to have the law of kindness on your tongue, on your lips. So when you use your words, it's good to be at a point when you are no longer filled with anger, so that you can use your words and not put in fillers such as the F word, or calling people a bitch or whatever it is, when they're not that. So it's good to speak to the point as much as possible when you're trying to talk things out. Speak to be heard. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Because the whole thing about talking is to achieve peace, right? And understanding. Seek to understand the reasons behind the offense and to understand the person that offended you. Because when you understand, you can forgive and be gracious. The Lord is gracious. Proverbs 14:29. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. When you don't understand, or when people are having a misunderstanding, normally they're fighting. But he that is hasty of spirit exalted folly. You'll act the fool. I think there's a song, yeah, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here, up in here. Y'all gonna make me act a fool up in here, up in here. And then I think there's another one, or it's the same one, that said, act a fool, you better watch out. I think that's a different one. So, but he that is hasty of spirit, if you're quick to wrath, quick to anger, you may do some foolish things that you'll regret after, and you have to apologize. Proverbs 2:2-5. Applying thine heart to understanding. Seek to understand why you're going through the warfare that you're going through, and God will lead you and help you to understand. Proverbs 18, verse 2. A fool hath no delight in understanding. So if you choose never to understand, you will act a fool. But that his heart may discover itself. So before seeking things out to understand it, is like you let things just happen in the moment, and then you discover what was in your heart. Proverbs 17:27. He that hath knowledge spareth his words, and a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. So when you're of an excellent spirit, you seek to understand your opponent, understand the spirit behind your opponent, understand the offense, why it's happening, what Satan is doing behind it. Then you oftentimes have peace, you walk in wisdom, and you can forgive, and you're so gracious. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. So my soul is happy, or my soul became happy when I got an understanding of Ian Main, and I got to some degree an understanding of Mike. Yes. Proverbs 4 verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Right? So I sought to really understand the situation with Christopher, and why this happened and why that happened, and God gave me understanding, and I would have more peace about it. I'm not too happy that he's not delighting in doing the will of God concerning us, but I'm at peace more because God helped me to understand him and where he's at mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So, to cut things off, cut contact in the middle of a conflict without resolving things, especially if you're in your 30s and 40s, that's not showing yourself to be a mature Christian. But if you purposefully do it and you want a fixation agenda for your victim, it means you want bitterness. You want bitterness to spread in the church. You want lies to be exalted. You want people to start spiraling. You want people to hate themselves and commit suicide. You want depression, anxiety. You want the brethren to be defiled. Because when bitterness spreads, it defiles other people, right? So that's not good. Talk things out. Seek God, get counseling. Bitterness defiles. And I'll give you an example. 2016, after Simona came in, and I really didn't know much about the heart of Christopher at that time. And so after Simona came in, after the switcheroo, whatever, then all of a sudden in December 2016, or around that time, he starts to now record me and lets me know that he's recording me. And then I thought that was weird. And then to do that because you don't want people to lie on you, or he didn't want to delete my messages when we were supposed to break up or whatever, because you don't want people to lie on you. You're projecting that you believe off the back, and especially when he didn't seek God about me and don't know me, you're projecting that you think I'm a liar, and I'm not. So whatever relationship he was in before, where they did lie on him, whether they had devices or not, he needed to deal with each offense or breakup and get an understanding of why the person did what they did, whether they had fear in their heart or whether they want to look good in front of people while they lie. Whatever it is, he needed closure on those situations. When you don't do that and things pile up, now you start spewing out and bleeding all over the place and projecting things that's not true. And that can become an offense, right? Then projecting that I'm this female that would be jealous or envious. Or at the Christmas fellowship in December, I think at that time, we weren't talking at that time, I don't believe. And he's looking at me, but he's winding up or moving up his hips behind Simona. And Simona's just standing there, not looking at me, but looking in another direction. He must have expected me to be jealous or envious. Absolutely not. It's either it's God's will or it's not. I can accept when it's not God's will. I can accept the no from God. So, no. And I learned years ago, if you ever need anything, you ask God in prayer. This whole thing about marriage, I got to a point where I didn't see anybody coming, so I'm accepting that in 2015, early 2016. So I plan to be an SMC. So, no. And then to further confirm that I'm not about the jealousy and envious life, I'll pray and ask God, and God will answer. Ask and you receive. His thoughts for us are for peace and not of evil, to give an expected end. So God strengthened my faith prior to me meeting Christopher in that area. So you can't, no, I'm not about the jealous life. And so when they were bringing up Simona, when I went to this church, via devices or through the individuals, I just sought God, and I'm led to the book of Hannah. The book of Hannah. Very funny, but trying to mess with my communication right now. I was led to 1 Samuel 1, and section of 1 Samuel 1 and 2. It was on the story of Hannah. And I already know, you know, you just ask God for whatever you need. You don't need to be carrying on like that. But as long as I didn't know about his lust with Simona and how far it lasted, they would carry on like that. And then confirmation, when Elder Walker mentioned years before, love triangle, and Elkanah, Hannah, and Penina. What is that? Love triangle. So anyway, so what spirit is behind that? It's love triangles. It's not the spirit of the Lord. So I learned to pray and ask God years ago, I think in my early 20s. Pardon me, if they're messing with my device now. Mid-20s. I think it was my mid-20s. I don't think it was my early 20s. But I was a prayerful person anyway. So I learned to ask God, whatever it is, mid-20s, somewhere in my 20s, okay? So by the time I hit 32, you can't pull that kind of stunt with me. No, okay? And that goes to show what kind of female he probably thought I would be, not knowing who I am, because, hey, his bitterness defiles. He doesn't seek God about me. He didn't seek God to know my heart and God's plans for us. So he's leaning on his own understanding and past experiences and projecting this. That is why it's good to do Matthew 5, 23, 24, Matthew 18, 15 to 20. It's good to do that. It's good to talk things out, deal with things of the past so your heart can be pure, clean, cleansed, free, so that you can receive the things that God has ahead. Because if you don't get rid of certain things and certain mindsets, you'll end up going in the direction of Judas. So, be aware of that. To not talk things out, as we agreed on Friday, April 10th, and then send a text to deal with the issue in his heart in a proud, haughty, wrathful manner. You heard the way his words, how he put them together in a text message, not even dealing with the issue. Makes him, unfortunately, to appear as a scorner. And scorners cause reproach and contention and strife. So, he needs a lot of counseling. People, please do get counseling. Please do follow God's words. Because you do not want to be a developmentally delayed Christian. Adulterers hunting the precious soul or virgin in church needs counseling. Pedophiles, they need counseling. Love triangles means you need counseling to cleanse your heart. Delighting in sleeping with virgins, you need counseling. All of America and the Western world needs counseling, especially coming out of slavery and living under this form of slavery in incognito ways. Marginalizing virgins, women, melanated females, Christians, Christianity, you need counseling. Loving fornication more than God, you need counseling. Raped, sexually abused, I think it's SRAs, you have the satanic ritual abused people. Prostitutes, whores, lustful person, you need counseling. Don't sit in church for years with your bitterness, because that would defile. No matter how calm you appear, whatever it is, The fact that you're not dealing with issues the way you're supposed to deal with issues, and the fact that you can't receive of God the things you need to receive of God, and your heart is hardened, shows that you need counseling, you need closure, you need peace in your soul. Your heart is not pure. One of the things in our conversation is that I mentioned to Chris, my favorite part was the intimacy, the emotional intimacy that we had. We never had sex. The emotional intimacy that we had. We would hug and talk, and he liked it, I liked it. That was my favorite part. That happened way before we even kissed, before he even did whatever to try to please me in whatever way. And in this conversation, he's sharing that, if you please me, I'll please you, or something like that. But that's not really my delight. Is the emotional intimacy. It's just like being in your marriage with God, talking to God, having God answer you, and having this unity of the spirit with God, where he speaks to you on certain things and you talk back to him and he answers. It's beautiful. And then you're walking in what he instructs you to walk in, and you see the fruit of it and you see the peace of it. That's beautiful. Can you experience other pleasures in God? At his right hand there are pleasures forevermore. But the things that you can experience in your flesh, like for me, that's not really like an orgasm is not really a priority for me. But people who are sensuous or lustful or in the world or out there, or adulterers or fornicators or whatever, and they focus on erogenous zones and pleasure, that's their mindset. That's their focus. That's what they have out there. Right? Lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. But my favorite part was the emotional intimacy. And having that with God is beautiful. That's my favorite part. There are other things that you can experience, in your God-given marriage. That's nice and beautiful. But, and I guess some females hearing him do whatever or seeing him do whatever, they get jealous or envious, and that's what they want. But for me, and I guess he did not know this about me, for me, the emotional intimacy that we had, that he delighted in and we both delighted in before we even kissed, that's my favorite part. And the unity of the spirit, just the flow of the spirit, and God just leads you and guides you, and oh, that is beautiful. I love it with God. So I'm content. I'm not like certain females. When you have certain experiences out there, they may project and think that the church thinks the same way. No. That the church is wanting. No. The mindset of those who are spiritual is very different from the mindset of those who are focused on carnal pleasure. Different individuals. So be aware of that. Get counseling. Seek God. Seek God about your counselor. Get closure. Get peace. And if the adversary is just not wanting you to talk things out and get closure, seek the Lord. He'll give you closure, so that the adversary doesn't have space to give you a heart that's hardened against God or against his word or promises, a a heart that's believing, he don't want to give you a heart that's believing lies about yourself and lies about the situation and whatever. He will let you know. And for some time, way before I spoke to him, you know, God would already lead me when I saw God about Simona. God would lead me to the wayward woman, and I discussed that. So that's basically fornication and adultery right there. And then when I shared with God after he would lead me to certain things, I wouldn't talk to a man that has, like, you know, that's adulterous or whatever, you know, based on his heart. But the Lord led me to where it says in that scripture, where it says, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, into the image of God, really. And that's part of that verse. And so it's like saying, you know, he can change, you know, not to give up on him, this is who is my God-given spouse, but he can change by the Spirit of God into the image and likeness of God. But if he chooses to harden his heart, God already told me about that. So he led me to the scriptures. He led me to Hebrews 3:12. I think Hebrews 4:7 concerning Christopher Delgado. So I have peace. So God can give you peace. So your heart is not, and your emotions not full of bitterness. Because, you know, when you're bitter, it's like your body is tense more. It's like you're not comfortable within your own body or skin. And it's just unnatural. It means it's basically like a message to yourself about what your soul or what you're feeling, that you're not supposed to be that way, or you're not supposed to be feeling that. So I would get peace, the peace of God, seek God, talk to God about it, and he would help me. But these wizards and sorcerers, they like bitterness. They like war. They like divisiveness. Because remember, Satan has a wrath against humanity. And then when people are lacking knowledge or abused sexually when they're young, or their wife leaves them, or their heart has been broken from one relationship, and they don't heal properly, then these adversaries get to work in that realm of sexual intimacy and bitterness, and that defiles. And fornication and rape, fornication, same thing. You're not supposed to be in that sexual space. It's not your vagina. It's not your God-given space to bring forth fruit in the land. But you're there, thieves and robbers. So that's pretty much what it is. Whether it's with violence or consent, you're still a sexual thief. So you need counseling, okay? You need counseling, and a lot of America needs counseling. And God's will is for us to have peace in the Middle East. But things can happen when someone lacks knowledge, and then someone convinced another, a leader, to go to war with this country. And you see it in the scriptures too, with David, you know, and some leaders. When David, his intentions were good, but the mind of the leader was corrupted by bad counsel, and then they end up fighting. It happens. So in all that getting, get understanding, and seek to understand the individual. And you know, if you feel like you can't humble yourself and forgive someone, and you respond with a proud, haughty, wrathful way, arrogant way, it's like you want to upkeep an image that's unreal before people about you. And it's like you want to have this power, this respect, and you're lusting for something instead of walking in humility and meekness before God. Jesus made himself of no reputation. So that helped me to gracefully deal with the things when people try to affect my reputation. Just be real. There's pride, there's self-exalted, self is in the way. So that's pretty much it for now. Counseling, dealing with bitterness, dealing with serial adulterers and whatever. Get counseling, seek God, get closure, get peace from God, and so that you can receive the things that are to come that God has in store for you.